During my wife's ultrasound, the doctor's hand started shaking. "Sir, you need to get out of there immediately and call a lawyer." I replied, "Is there something wrong with the baby?" He whispered, "The baby is fine. But what are you looking at on that screen?" When he showed me the screen, I left without saying anything, without looking back. The room was supposed to be filled with joy. My wife, Laura, lay on the reclined chair, her blouse lifted slightly, her hand resting protectively over her small but growing belly. The dim hum of the ultrasound machine filled the silence, a steady rhythm of anticipation. I sat beside her, fingers tapping nervously on my knee, waiting for the moment I had dreamt of for months, the moment I'd hear the heartbeat of the life we had created together. This was supposed to be our moment. But the doctor's hands, they wouldn't stop shaking. He pressed the probe against Laura's stomach, his eyes locked on the monitor with unnatural intensity. His knuckles whitened as he gripped the device, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he'd had too much coffee. But then I noticed the sweat beading across his brow, the way his lips pressed into a tight, trembling line. "Is everything okay?" I asked, my voice breaking the fragile silence. The doctor flinched. His eyes flicked to me, then back to the screen. His breathing quickened. He hesitated far too long before answering. Finally, in a voice that was both urgent and trembling, he said, "Sir, you need to get out of here immediately, and you need to call a lawyer." The words hit me like a thunderclap. "What? Why?" My pulse surged, my chest tightening as if I'd been punched. "Is something wrong with the baby?" Laura turned her head toward him, her brows knitting in confusion. She hadn't caught on to the panic yet, but I had. The room suddenly felt colder, the shadows deeper. The doctor leaned closer to me, his voice dropping into a whisper, sharp enough to cut glass. "The baby is fine," he said. His eyes darted toward Laura, then back to me. "But what you're looking at on that screen?" He tilted the monitor slightly so I could see more clearly. My stomach twisted into knots. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. The grainy black and white image flickering on the screen. The outline of a baby was there, tiny and fragile, the heart flickering like a pulse of light. That part should have filled me with joy. But then the doctor adjusted the view, zooming in on something else. Something hidden behind the miracle we were supposed to be celebrating. And when I saw it, the air was ripped from my lungs. My chair screeched as I pushed back abruptly, standing on legs that suddenly felt too weak to hold me. My vision blurred at the edges, but I couldn't take my eyes off the monitor. Laura's voice cut through the haze. "Ethan, what is it? What's wrong?" But I couldn't answer her. My throat locked shut. My body moved on its own as though survival instincts had taken control. I turned and shoved open the door, stepping into the hallway where the sterile white lights burned too bright. My footsteps echoed on the linoleum floor as I walked faster, past the nurse's station, past the reception desk, past the people who stared at me with puzzled expressions, wondering why a husband would leave in the middle of his wife's ultrasound. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Not at Laura, not at the doctor, not at the room that had just detonated. My life. By the time I reached the parking lot, my hands were shaking so badly, I could barely slot my keys into the ignition. I sat there in the car, chest heaving, sweat dripping down my temples, replaying the moment over and over again. The doctor's words clanged inside my skull like a death knell. "Call a lawyer. The baby is fine. But what you're looking at on that screen." And in that moment, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Nothing about my marriage or my life was ever going to be the same again. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Laura slept soundly beside me, her breath steady, her hand unconsciously resting on the curve of her stomach. She looked peaceful, innocent even, but the image on that ultrasound screen kept replaying in my mind like a broken film reel, refusing to let me rest. The baby, our baby, or so I thought, tiny, fragile, a spark of life. That part had been beautiful, but then the doctor had zoomed in, and what he showed me wasn't beautiful at all. It was a scar, a surgical scar, clear, distinct, deep inside Laura's body. At first I couldn't process it. I remember whispering, "What is that?" My voice barely audible. That's when the doctor leaned toward me, lowering his tone to a whisper meant only for me. "Your wife," he said, his voice taut with unease, "had a fertility procedure done, a highly advanced one. But sir, this isn't something you do at a regular clinic. This kind of mark, it's from embryo implantation. That baby is not naturally conceived," which means I didn't let him finish. I couldn't, because his words had already set my mind racing, dragging me back months earlier. Laura's reassurances, her insistence that we should just try naturally. How she brushed off every conversation about IVF, saying it was too expensive, too clinical, too cold. I'd believed her. I wanted to believe her. But what chilled me the most wasn't the scar. It was the doctor's last whisper before I stormed out of that room. This type of implantation is usually done with a donor embryo, not the husband's. The words echoed like thunder in my skull. By morning, the silence between Laura and me had become unbearable. She smiled sleepily over coffee, talking about baby names as though nothing had happened, as though the ground hadn't shifted beneath my feet. I excused myself, my voice brittle, and went into the study to make the call. My lawyer answered on the third ring. My throat felt raw, my voice hollow as I explained everything. The scar, the ultrasound, the doctor's words, my growing suspicion that the child my wife carried wasn't mine. 2 agonizing days later, the lawyer returned with proof. Cold, undeniable proof. He handed me a folder, thick with documents, medical records Laura had hidden under a false name, bank transfers to a private fertility clinic, known for its discretion. But the worst, the absolute worst, were the emails, printed out in black and white, staring at me like poison. They were between Laura and another man, a wealthy client of hers, married, desperate for a child of his own. The two of them had been exchanging messages for months, discussing timelines, procedures, payments. One line seared itself into my memory. "Don't worry, Laura. My wife doesn't have to know. You'll give me the child she never could." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Every puzzle piece clicked into place, forming a picture so cruel, it made me nauseous. Laura hadn't just cheated. She had volunteered her womb to carry another man's embryo, his legacy, his blood, his child. When I confronted her, I expected denial, excuses, lies. But what I got instead was worse. She didn't deny it, not once. Her eyes welled with tears, her voice trembling as she said, "I just wanted a baby, Ethan. You were always so busy, always so consumed with work. I knew you'd never agree to this, so I did what I had to do." Her words hit me harder than a punch. What you had to do. My voice came out cold, flat, unrecognizable even to myself. "Laura, you're carrying another man's child. Do you understand that? You didn't just betray me. You erased me, she sobbed, insisting she still loved me, insisting she thought this would somehow make us stronger. But love built on deception isn't love. It's poison. That night, I packed my bags. No shouting, no theatrics, just silence. I folded my clothes carefully, slid the suitcase shut, and walked past her as she begged me to stay. I didn't look at her. I didn't look at the baby bump she cradled, as though it absolved her of everything. I walked out of the house the same way I'd walked out of that ultrasound room, without looking back. And as the door clicked shut, behind me, the realization cut through the fog of grief with chilling clarity. The doctor hadn't just shown me an ultrasound. He had shown me the death certificate of my marriage. Because sometimes the baby is fine, but the family is already gone.